Alright, I think it's about time to start this off, huh? Let's see if I can figure out how all this works. Yeah, there we go. How's everybody doing in the chat there? Thanks for coming out. I mentioned that Jared has something he wants to gift to somebody. A little prize. A little something fun. We'll have to see what it is. It might be a mystery package. He's known for having his mystery prize packages, but we'll figure it out. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3 people. Yeah, if you're here, you're gonna want to at least pop in the chat and mention that you're here so that you can be possibly in for the prize. It's an important thing. And let's see here what we got going. I think what I wanted to show, well, this whole thing is really about this map. This map that's on the screen right now. This was an airmail envelope that Heath sent me from Australia after he got back home from GaryCon 5 years ago, 2015, I think. Pretty sure that's the right date, the right year. And I took out my street address. I don't know. They tell you you're supposed to do that. I think most people know where I live. Since I'm in Lake Geneva, and it's not that tough to find me. But yeah, it is what it is. And so he sent this to me and had some goodies in it. I think it included a number of keychains and some little cool things. They're around here somewhere. Wish I could find them. That would have been a good idea to have those ready to show off. But let me see. See if I can bring this other thing up. Yeah, here we go. So he sent this. I'm gonna work with the technology here and make myself tiny. Hey, I'm in this little box. Let me out. Let me out. Anyway, he sent this, and so I took it. Cool stamp too. $2.75. That's a lot for airmail, huh? But it got here, and he has his little name on the side. I took it and I stripped the color out of it, and I stripped away the writing and got it down to the map itself. And then I took that and I superimposed a grid underneath it all so that I could have, well, I do first edition, so these are 10-foot squares. And then I also got a hold of a Dyson Logos map, coincidentally, that one that he had done in 2015. And it had 2 entryways. And don't forget, Heath's map had 2 exits at the south end. So I had to look at this as a sort of a pseudo dungeon tile. What do they call them? What's the name? All right, who in the chat's going to help me out here? This isn't actually that, because you can't turn it any which way and have it fit. But they're those squares that they put together, and you can build a dungeon as you go, and they all have like 2 entrances on each side. And then if you turn it, I don't know. Anyway, so because it had those two, and this was kind of close, I took this map, turned it, and cleaned up this side. So essentially, it could connect up to Dyson's map could connect up to Heath's map. Right? Those two connecting right up to those two. And it can continue on. Now, I love Dyson Logos maps. I've been a Patreon supporter of his for, I think, 4 years. And, the original intention was grab as many of his commercial-free maps that I could use as possible, and they've just been piling up because he puts so much stuff out. And over the last 4 years, I've actually been working at the game store full-time, which is 40-plus hours. So I have not done very much at all when it comes to Creative Mountain Games publishing. And this is something I literally started working on just before I got into the game store and started managing that. So here I am 5 years later. Suddenly I have some downtime. I don't know if there's a silver lining in this whole crisis situation. It's crazy. But I've got some time. I feel like Burgess Meredith on the front steps of the library, and I'm just waiting for my glasses to be broken so I don't have time enough to read anymore. But I have some time to create, so I broke this back out and I started working on it. And this map here is pretty cool because it fits so well. It extends the interior of this here. So we really got, I don't know, probably an exterior encounter. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potential interior areas. These are all pretty close and pretty connected. This could be shaved off in a sense because what's out here doesn't necessarily know about what's in here, right? And then we've got the interior stuff. This again is pretty close to that, and something in the room that's over here could conceivably easily see what's in here, or even in here, although this is a bit twisty-turny, so it can be separated a bit. And this drops down, right? This little minor cliff drops down, so this has got to be a ramp. And then you've got these ominous-looking pillars here, and then again, a drop down, what is probably a pool. And notice this goes down and down and down, so this actually goes ramp-like down again, and then another little drop into an even deeper pool. Notice you have to go up to get here. So down 1, down 2, up 1 gets you back up to here. Up 2 gets you back up to here. So this is a level. This is a level. And then this down here is its own level also. And hopefully you can see that cursor as I swing it around there easily enough. Let me know if this is too tough to follow or whatever. Anyway, so we've got these pools. We've got a couple of side rooms down here. We've got this unusually shaped room, and it usually denotes something weird. Nice cross section there, a side room there, a transition room from one area to another. This was a larger room, and it's somewhat collapsed, so there's something to do with that. This is almost like a promenade or a temple area, but it's offset, which is strange, so you have to account for that when you're filling it up. Another slightly oddly shaped room. And then, of course, this, I don't know. What do you think? Is that a platform? Is it a pit? Probably a pit, or maybe a shaft going down. But then this little riser over in the peaked corner there. So there's a bunch of neat features on this. We've got a cavern that extends around this whole area, and then an actual worked area. So what do we do with the whole thing? Well, my original thinking was this was a cave that had been long abandoned. At one time, it might have been a mine. There might have been some mining going on in here. And then maybe years had passed after it had been mined out or abandoned for whatever reason. Maybe there were some creatures in the pool. Maybe these are warning stones, some sort of runes. Don't go in here, danger, whatever. But eventually it was abandoned completely. Maybe something else years down the road came in and carved out this, I don't know, maybe it's a cultist's temple. And maybe even that fell into disrepair, or maybe they overreached, and that's why we had this collapse here. Maybe this was their main temple, and that collapse destroyed a statue to whatever they were worshiping, and they saw it as some sign, and so abandoned it. And then maybe other beings came in and filled it up over the years. One of my thoughts was, wouldn't it be neat if there was like a spy hole here? Maybe there were old arrow slits that were used to protect the entrance that have even crumbled down or been grown over in such a way that they're hardly even visible from the outside anymore. But maybe from a nearby town there were some dwarves that came back to rediscover this area and try their hand at reopening the mines, not knowing perhaps about any of the activity or even the building, because dwarves are long-lived. This could be something that happened 25, 50, 100 years ago, and it might not even be something that they were aware of. So maybe they've come here, they discovered the secret door, but also discovered some enemies that were far too tough for them, so they stashed themselves in here, and now they're actually in deep doo-doo. They're trapped in here. They don't know how to get out. But one of them has some sort of a creature or some way of slipping a message out through the slot, whatever was still open there. And a message has gotten back to whoever who can pass on the geomorphs. That's the name. I was looking at your Dwarven Forge dungeon tiles. You know what? They used to call those things geomorphs. Right? And they were square, and you could line them up this way or this way or this way, and the two exits from one would fit on the two entrances of the other, but you'd create a different dungeon every time that you built it. Anywho, yeah, I was thinking you're right. I think in pit too, Bingham, for sure. The those downward angles make it seem like that. So maybe that was an old sacrificial pit or something from the cultists that were there at that one time. Maybe they didn't build all of that. Maybe they built some of it, and some of it was then constructed later. Anywho, the thing I was talking about, those maybe maybe there's a half a dozen or a dozen dwarves who are mostly miners, with a couple of guys with some a couple of dwarves that have some fighting experience that had gone along as guards or protectors of the miners so that they could check this out, and maybe they've scrambled or created a base of operations there, but after exploring a little bit and beginning to scout it out, had to retreat back to there to hide. And now they're trapped in there, and they've only got limited supplies, so they've sent out word hoping to get some help. And that's the plot hook, right? For the adventure is word has come back to the town that you're either living in, and you place this outside of a town where your players already have set up as a headquarters, or it's word's gotten back from another town nearby and they don't have anybody that can go rescue people, so they've sent word to the bigger town where they hear there are adventurers who might take up such a cause. Or maybe there's a a mission board, a help wanted board in the center of town, and there's a poster slapped up on there saying there's this abandoned mine that had been re-inhabited by some miners, and now they're trapped and they need your help. So maybe that's the hook. Maybe the mining operation actually has some money behind it, and now because of public sentiment, they have to put up a reward to go save these trapped miners. And so that becomes just the beginning of it, because once they get in here and they manage to get the miners out, you know they're going to want to look around more. But at least that takes the onus off, right? If they can, if the dwarves that are with the miners that have enough experience to guard them enough to get them back to town, then the adventurers don't have to come and take these people and completely extract them. They just have to cover their retreat. And once they're gone, the adventurers, the PCs, they can explore further. So now they've got this whole other area to explore that we need to populate in some way. Anyway, that's my thinking. That's my 20-minute elevator pitch for this adventure. What do you folks think? Does it sound like something worth doing? What else we got here? So here we go. Let's go here. Put on screen. So I've got both maps here. There we go. All right. Oh, I'm just getting a message from Jared. Let me check in with him here real quick. Give him a quick note. Tell him to come on in. He's dying to give something away, it seems. See if he has the time to do that. I know he's pressed for time doing some other things. Anybody else having a beer with me tonight? Is it just me and my Black Barbarian on my own? Boy, when a beer in a bottle makes that glug glug sound, you know you're drinking alone. Thank goodness for the internet. You pretend you're not. Let's see. Probably not the right person to ask. Not the right person to ask what? Oh, political intrigue. Yeah, that's always fun. This last campaign I ran had some interesting political things. Although it was mainly a kind of a pseudo mega dungeon, because it was a series of 7 towers out on the moors. And the deeper into the moors you got, the more dangerous were the occupants of the tower. So it didn't matter which side of the moors you came from. You had easier ones on the outside. It was a trail that ran from north to south across these moors. They were way stations that had been built years before. And to travel safely across the moors, they're essentially one day's travel apart. So if you started from the south or the north, the first and seventh were third level adventures. The second and sixth were fourth and fifth level adventures. The next ones were fifth and sixth level adventures, and then the final one, like a seventh to eighth level adventure. And the group, they took a year, they played through the whole thing. But even as all that was happening, their patrons, which was a temple in the main city in the kingdom, was up against it with some other nobles that were not appreciating the fact that these guys had a whole bunch of adventurers under their wing and were basically paying them off mostly with healing potions, but they were also, to a certain extent, controlling a sort of a burgeoning magic item economy, because they would seek magic items from other places, pay something for them, mark them up, sell them off to the adventurers, and at the same time, they were getting magic items from the adventurers in trade for spells and healing and whatever, and then selling them off, and the church was gaining from it. Jared, you're there. Hey, nice. Let's see. Just a few people in tonight. Only 3 who have posted in the chat. Anyway. All right. Moralities now. I'm going to have to work that up. All right. Play now. Crates. So what do I click on here then, Jared? Once I follow the link that says to subscribe. Preparing games that you enjoy. Crates. Cheese Store. Am I considered subscribed just by clicking on that? Or am I missing something here? Ah. I see. Okay, Grognard. Very nice. That's excellent. So I go to join us. Very nice. All right. Very good. Okay, I see. Thank you, Jared. No need to be sad and withdrawn. This is the peak of the GaryCon. You know, the interesting thing about virtual GaryCon, particularly with this current health crisis going on, we could actually be doing this for weeks. So I wouldn't think of today as the second to the last day of GaryCon, virtual GaryCon 2012. I would think of today as the third day in what could be another 4 weeks of virtual GaryCon. Because I know I don't know what's going to change or when it's going to change or how it's going to change. What I do know is that the current order from the Wisconsin governor is that non-essential businesses are closed until April 24th, which is 4 weeks from yesterday. Now, I don't know if I'm going to have to stay home that whole time, how much work I'm going to be able to do from home. For the game store, our stock is in the store, and we legally are not supposed to be going into that store. So, well, I might be able to do a lot of stuff from home in regard to taking orders or shipping stuff out or whatever. If I don't have the stuff here to ship, if I have to go to the store to get it, I can't. So that's not going to happen. Also, they've pushed back the next Magic release from the 24th of April to the 15th of May. And instead of having a pre-release the week before, they've combined release weekend with pre-release weekend. So it all actually happens on the 15th of May and that weekend. So that's pushed back 3 weeks. And we'll see what happens there. But, you know, I mean, they may need to extend this. They may try to shorten it. I don't know. I do know that the current situation is the 24th of April. And it may just be that GaryCon, or this period of virtual gaming that we're just beginning to explore, some of us anyway. Some of you have been doing it a lot longer than me. The virtual thing. I mean, I've tried it a few times. I just always have opportunities for face-to-face games, and it's what I've done for years, so it's what I continue to do. Now I'm in a situation where I'm learning some new things and taking advantage of the technology that exists. And I got to get my gaming in. You know, I moved up to Lake Geneva 7 years ago. Kind of semi-retired to relax, enjoy gaming, do some writing. Jumped in at the game store when he was looking for a manager, because I thought, yeah, you know, it's something to do, and we'll put retirement off a little ways. And it's been a real treat. I've really enjoyed it. But now, 4 years since I did that, almost 4 years, I'm 4 years further down the road, and I game 3, 4, 5 times a week, whether it's playing some Magic, running a D&D game, playing some board games, playing some card games, and it's been great. But now it's been cut off, and I'm jonesing, baby. So I am going to be spending some of this downtime away from the store, writing more again, and running some games online, getting much more familiar with these various platforms, whether it's Roll20 or maybe Fantasy Grounds. I was messing around with that some years ago, back when it was new. Zoom looks very promising for running certain types of games. So even, you know, Skype and Google Hangouts is still a possibility. That's something I've done in the past although it was years ago. But it's all good. It's all possible. I may do a little bit of everything, but we will see. Moved to Delavan and lived there for 2 years, says Jared. So, dude, we've got Snow Quilter, J.L. Bingham there, and where'd you go? Lala Whittle. Lala Twiddle? Are you still in the chat? One cheesehead son. Only one of your children was born in Wisconsin, huh? See if Lala Twiddle's still with us too. So what do you think, Jared? One of these lucky 3, huh? Should be winning one of your OK Grognard prizes. Do I have that right? All of them. Oh, and Lala Twiddle's gone, so only 2 of them. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jared. Everyone can use the code. Now, is this something that I can also say aloud so that anybody who watches this video later can use the code for as long as they last? Or is this something that only the people in the chat should be taking advantage of? And then I can maybe mention it in the chat tomorrow when I stream something too. Only have 20 left until they are gone. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to be saying anything that somebody who just sees the video later can use. I'll just wait, and I'll mention it in the chat when I run a stream tomorrow. Probably early in the day, probably in the morning. And then I'm probably going to do another stream tomorrow night when I'm winding down, having a beer, and working on some stuff. So we'll see how many people I get over the next 2 streams. If we get 20, then maybe they'll all be gone. If we only get a handful each time, maybe about half of them will be gone. Either way, there'll be some happy gamers, and I thank you very much for doing this. Man, Tim Kask was so right about you. You are the best. It's a pretty nice endorsement. Hopefully they recorded that interview. You can hear what he said about you and about you personally. Maybe you can quote him. He is a funny guy. I managed to get a question in toward the end of his interview. I asked Jimmy Wampler if he'd posed the question, because they were taking some questions from the audience, but most of them were about gaming. And I asked him what his favorite George Carlin bit was, because I knew he was a Carlin fan. And he said it was a place for my stuff. I don't know if you know that bit. It's about a 15-minute comedy bit where George Carlin just basically lambasts consumerism and hoarding and all of that in life. And I won't even try to do a part of it. You could probably go onto YouTube and type in George Carlin, a place for my stuff, and check out the bit done by the master. He's certainly my first and favorite comedian. I posted a picture on Facebook somewhere, some time back, about me back in the early 70s holding up 2 George Carlin albums. My parents had gotten them for me for Christmas, and they had not realized, because they knew George Carlin from his suit and tie days in the 60s, before he switched to being more himself and became the hippie guy he was, and a lot of his humor changed. He wasn't a button-down guy anymore. But they hadn't listened to the albums in advance because it was tough to do in the 70s. You'd have to buy the album and then go and listen to it before you gave it away as a gift, and that means taking it out of its shrink wrap and all of that too. So they weren't screening them. They gave me 2 George Carlin albums, and he was hilarious. Saw him in Vegas in '96, huh? Yeah, he is awesome. He is awesome indeed, and it's little wonder why Tim Cass likes him, or why we love Tim Cass and his sense of humor. Being a Carlin fan, you know, what were we saying earlier? Dice of a feather rolled together. So I had those albums. I listened to them in my room, just incredulous that they'd gotten past the parental censors, as it were. And he became my first and favorite comedian of all time, and always will be. It's a shame he passed, but let's face it, he wore himself down, and probably would have gone a little longer if he hadn't, but he wouldn't have had as good a time either. So I like to joke sometimes when people look at me. I say, what you see here is what you get when a hedonist doesn't finish the job. So I think George would have appreciated that sentiment. Anywho, where are we at on time here? 11:07? Okay, well, we've only been at it 37 minutes. I don't know if you guys are in a hurry to get going, but I can do some more here. So I've talked through some of the ideas I've had for this. I have an Adobe subscription, so I regularly use Adobe Photoshop, but of course I also use Adobe InDesign. And I dropped these 2. Here we go. I dropped these 2 maps onto a couple of InDesign pages so that I'd have a bit of a worksheet, right? Because it's easy enough for me just to... So this is actually a space for my stuff being words. So what I need to do in this case, you know what, we can make this a little bigger, so we really only need that much of the map and part of it here. If we say that this space number 1 should be outside. Alright, so we need to talk about what's going to happen out here. Are these just grasses? Are these like prairie grasses? Or is this a kind of a swampy area? There's a river right nearby. It's not impossible that this is a sort of a path through a swampy area that fords a river, stream rather, right? It's only about 20 feet wide, which is only 10 feet here. Some could maybe jump across, but if this is all swamp, this is all reedy, marshy sort of, then you're not going to get a good running jump to jump across the 10 feet. And we don't know what this is. This could be a deep cut channel that flows through it. I'm only going in this direction because it's wider up here. It cuts around this outcropping. I think in most cases a river is not going to come around and then hug the wall, but if it was coming from up in this direction, hit something and needed to divert, and then continued on its path in this direction, that makes sense. So I'm seeing this flowing in this direction. And swampy, I would think, you say? Okay, good. Good. And then we like the rocky ford idea. You know, a lot of these rocks could have been pitched in by miners or other individuals off of the cliffs or from within the caves. So we know how we got a nice little ford there. So where is encounter number 1, or place that needs a description number 1? It doesn't have to be an encounter. Let's say that everything that happens this way is going to be backstory or exposition, but what we need to do is definitely discuss the swamp. We need to talk about going through the swamp, and the first let's call it decision point happens when we get to the ford. So let's make that a little bigger. We will selection tool. We're just going to slide this over. No, we don't need to do that. No. See, I've been doing so much stuff in Photoshop, I always forget about other ways of transition. We just want to center that, leave it right there. Maybe later we'll come and put a box around it, but for now, a 1's good enough. We raised that up from 12, but of course this goes back to 12 for me. So, swamp path leads to Stony Ford, which would be a real good name for a dwarven character. No, it wouldn't, unless he invented a car. Alright, it's getting late. I've only had 1 beer. Can't be that late. Alright, what else do we need here? So we've got that. We're going to have a description for that. We're going to have a cave entrance. And we don't want to forget about that. You know what, though? If anybody investigates this, let's put something worth having in the bend there, caught up against the rocks, right? An old suit of armor, maybe just something magical or something useful. Okay, let's keep that in mind. We don't have to describe what it is yet. We don't have to know what it is. What we do want to be able to know is that, let's see, what do we want to do here? I need to do something with this box. Let's just make it bigger. Let's do this. Does that get me a good... Yeah. That's super good here. Why don't we change the size of this? I think if we go to 18, yeah, there we go. Go to 18, we're pretty close, almost, a little bigger. Nope, that's too big. Stony Ford. Swamp path leads to Stony Ford. Okay. We'll leave some room. That's fine. Number 2. Hidden treasure. TBD. Now, one of the reasons we can leave this as TBD is because we don't know what else is going to be in here. And, you gotta go. All right, Jen. Good night. Thank you. Anyway, we don't know what else is going to be encountered within. And, well, it might seem kind of, I don't know, not railroady, but maybe putting something specifically useful into a place ahead of time is a little too nice. Okay, we're just going to change the spacing between the lines. That'll work. All right. But you know, if we know specifically that there's something that could be useful, maybe an extra magic weapon is something. Maybe if this is like a second or third level adventure, having an extra magic weapon, something semi-generic, a mace or a short sword, +1, stuck under there at that bend, would be useful for a third level party almost invariably, because there's going to be some stuff inside that we know they're going to run up against, and it's going to require magical weapons. So maybe that's just there. Maybe that's the whole idea. Maybe we throw some sort of clue to it so that if they even go up the river a little bit or toward the end of that bend, there's a glint of light, something shining in the water that attracts their attention. Isn't that how they got Gollum with the ring? Of course it is. But the point being, it's a way of making sure that adventurers have a fighting chance, right? So we get 2 up there. Let's throw 3 right there. We're looking at 24 centered. Calling this the cave entrance. Now, there was a discussion in a DMing group recently about entryways to dungeons. There was, what was it, Zeb Cook talking earlier today? And he was saying, I think it was him, he was saying, isn't it interesting, more interesting not to just have a cave entrance that just anybody could walk right in. You think about something like Lord of the Rings entrance when the Fellowship gets to Moria. They're out there for a while. They have to figure out how to get in. It's not actually something that should be dangerous to them. It's a protection. It's protection for the entrance to the mine. It's fairly innocuous. Back in the day, speak friend and enter. Just to say that you're a friend and you're welcome to come in. And that would have been no big deal in the heyday of Moria. But of course, here we are, years later, decades later. And it's a challenge. Mentally, it's a riddle after a fashion for this group that gets there, because they're a lot more suspicious than people were in those days. And it's further complicated by the fact of the Watcher in the water. So you've got an encounter there that wasn't there years before. So thinking along those lines, for this cave entrance, well, we've got to remember what we've already kind of mapped out in the idea that there'll be a group of miners holed up in there. However, that doesn't mean that there can't be a big pile of stones here that have been piled up, or maybe inside here that have been piled up by the dwarves trying to keep something out. Maybe there's something in the swamp that they're afraid of. It's not so much what's in here, although there'll be other things in here. Maybe their real most pressing fear, and the reason why they haven't left already, is because to go out here is very dangerous for them. And maybe a group that comes here trying to get in is going to attract some crossbow fire from those that are trapped in here, because maybe they don't recognize the fact that these are rescuers. So maybe there is that risk too. So that's something worth keeping in mind as we figure this out. All right, so we've got that. We've got let's see. You know what? We can just copy this a few times, right? We can put one here, which will actually be a 4. Put another one here. 5. Let's put one at the corner there. Put one here. We need another one here. And then here. And also down here. That'll be enough for this map. Get my text tool there. So we're going to put 4 there, 5 there. We want to know, I think we want to know this place before we know this place, although either one could be gotten to from out there just as easily. But this way we're kind of going around in a circle here, right? 8, 9, and 10. Alright, so we're going to have 10 encounter areas here. Good enough. And we're going to take a copy of this. Going to move it over here. And we'll just prep this with 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Obviously, some of these can be a little longer than they are if that is needed. So we've got some room. All right, let's save that. Okay. So let's see. Jonathan, you still in the chat? I know Layla left. And Jared, are you still there too? Or have you guys all took off? Any thoughts on any of this then? The incomparable Jonathan L. Bingham still in the chat. The stalwart. Holding out. Listening and working on your own map. Give me a quick idea what the map you're working on is about. Is it a dungeon map or a town map or an outdoor overland map, a world map. I'll tell you, one of the benefits of this weekend and not being too game savvy, let's say game platform savvy, one of the benefits of that for me was a lot of what I wound up doing was just going into these various seminar forums on the various platforms, whether it was Google Hangouts or Zoom, or into the chat rooms of various Twitch channels, and there were Discord server rooms being used for games and seminars too. All of these different sort of venues were being used, and I went to a lot of cartography seminars. Anna B. Meyer was talking about her Greyhawk maps as well as her other mapping cartography efforts. Shiloh Weidman was talking about all sorts of different kinds of maps. I sat in on a medieval fantasy map kind of overview seminar that he gave. He did another one on Dyson Logos maps, which of course everyone knows I love, and did another one on the geomorphs, which is why I was so embarrassed I couldn't think of that word earlier, Jonathan. Geomorphs was because earlier today I sat in on a seminar about geomorphs, and yet somehow the word was just out of my head. I also went to another seminar on characters that Pat Kilbane was running with, along with Nathan Like, and that was just a treat. He was talking about kind of a Carl Jungian approach to how you run your character. The idea that you've got these you've got the self, but then you've got these four aspects, these two axes opposing each other, where you've got thinking and feeling on the two ends of one axis, and sensing and intuiting on these other two ends of this other axis. And if you're toward one end of one, you're strong on one end, you're weaker on the other. So he looked at a number of stories, because Jung was definitely influential on Joseph Campbell, and the hero's journey has that sort of built into these different parts of characters. And when you look at Star Wars, for instance, you think of Luke as the whole self, right? And then you think of these different influences on his character, and you look at, for instance, the first character he actually meets is C-3PO, and that's thinking. And it isn't until much, much later that the other side of the axis comes up, and that's Leia, who's really about feeling, right? And then you've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's about intuiting, and yet you have Han Solo's influence, and he's about sensing things and acting on his instincts. And so, I don't know, it was a very interesting talk, and he gave a bunch more examples. I think he's hopefully going to share that later. Hopefully it was recorded, and he'll share it along with the slides that he presented. It was quite a treat. You did the artist gathering with Lloyd Metcalf. Well, that had to be great. That had to be wonderful. Hey, there's Heath. How you doing, buddy? Hey, Jonathan, since I can't say it aloud, why don't you tell Heath how he can get a hold of one of those secret mystery bundles that Jared was bestowing on people who are in the chat rooms of OK Grognard today and for the next couple of times for the week, over the weekend. And while you're doing that, I'm going to cue back up those maps I was showing earlier. Here we go. Now, you may have already seen these in the Patreon page, though, Heath, but I'll show you real quick again because maybe this is a better view of them. Remember this envelope you sent me? And refresh my memory. It was 2015, right? It was after Gary Con when you had been here, and then you sent this up to me along with a number of goodies. In any event, I took that. I stripped out the color and the text, and then I took the whole thing and I added a grid. You were there in 2016. Okay. So, and this was right after that, right? Or did you send this before then? Okay, it's got to be 2015. I'm pretty sure it was. Because I remember noting at the time the fact that I was adding on this Dyson Logos map that was also from 2015 was an odd coincidence as it happened. And I don't know if you recall, but I took this map, chopped off the end of it, and made it so that it would fit up to the two exits from your map so that I could basically extend the play area. All right? Oh, looking at the stamp. You know, I don't know if I could see that well. You know, if the postmark is there. You know, if I turn up the original envelope, maybe I'll be able to make this out. But as it is right now, I cannot tell what that says. It looks like it's upside down. So that looks like a 2. That looks like a 9, though. I don't know what the rest of these numbers are. No, sorry, I can't tell. I might be able to tell when I'm able to see the original. Oh, there you go, Jonathan. And there you go, Heath. Left of the stamp in the river, yep. Yeah, but I can't read it. What are you saying up there? I can't read that either. Maybe on the original. Like I said, 29 October. Oh, yeah. 2000. Yeah, you're right about that. You sent it in anticipation of coming up here, I think, in 2016. So it would have been 6 months. If it was October, it would have been about 5-6 months ahead of time. Yep, he hand wrote on the right side. Oh, 2015. There it is, right there. Oh, God. I'm an idiot. It's right there the whole time. Yep. And there you go. I've spent so little time with the original and so much time with my folded, spindled, and mutilated ones that I didn't see what was right there before me. So, Jonathan and I have been, he's been patiently hanging out, working on his own map, as I ruminate about what I'm doing with this. Your map is for a zine, a small island, you say. A zine. Oh, yeah, that's right. You guys are both, now, that's not the same time zone for you two, right? Adelaide and Wellington, New Zealand. You're far enough away that are there 2 time zones between you? 3 even? Australia's pretty big. What time is it currently, Heath, in Adelaide? And Jonathan, what time is it currently in Wellington? Okay. 5:30. It's just past 3. Just past 3? Do you mean 3:30? 3:35? 3:36 in Adelaide? So there's 15. It's really a half. They put a half hour in there? Oh, I realize you're both in Sunday. But I didn't know that some of the time zones did half-hour switches. I thought everything was chopped up into hours. So that's news to me. See, I'm just not the international traveler that you are. So I don't know these things. But it's good to know now. So there's a fair portion of GaryCon. Part of the winding down of GaryCon is going to happen in the wee hours of the night for both of you, really. Although less so for Heath. Gets later faster for you, huh, Jonathan? Anyway, tell me a little bit about this island, if you will, or the zine. Can you reveal anything about it? Is this a secret project, or is this something you can share some information on to tease its upcoming publication? So we got the cave entrance. 4. I got to put down the arrow slits. Then in 5, we got to call this the dwarf. Call it a hideout. That's a good enough name for now. Sort of thing we're going to find at the entranceway. Remnants of a battle at 6. 7. Some sort of a mindless creature. Slumbering. Right? Something that isn't smart enough to be searching for a secret door, but knows there's something in the area, has nothing better to do than to just kind of hang out and wait and see what happens. Unless it gets hungry again, then it may just wander off. But at least at the time when it gets encountered, so it could be a big bear, it could be some other monstrous creature that has a similar intellect and carnivorous attitude that a bear would have. 8, we got to put something different in there, and I'm not sure what. 9 can run into some sort of a, something's got to cut off the front from the back. So why don't we put something in 9 that spreads across that whole area. We'll call them 9A and 9B. And let's A and B massive spider webs. Now, we realize that what we've just done here is cut off the back end from the front. So anything that's beyond this point doesn't go out the cave mouth regularly enough, or there'd have been some sort of fight, because we've got to put spiders and massive amounts of spider webs blocking access. All right, looking back at the chat here. That was just unfortunately. I missed the later stuff. I get you. With the time change. For your zine. Oh, Delve. Oh, yeah, okay. Typing on a tablet. No big deal. Delve, man. Yeah, I hear you. Pretty cool. Please do make sure to plug that in that OK Grognard group. Certainly when it comes out. But if you want to plug it in advance, or type up a little something talking about the project and working on it, a sort of a post about the creation of it. Not every post has got to be about selling stuff. I find just talking about the process. This stream, this video now, is really a process video. I may have to set this aside again. Suddenly we get called back up. The quarantine's over. I got to get back to work, and I'm working harder than ever as we move into summer, our busy season. And this might have to take a back seat for a while. I don't know. So I'm working on it now while I have the time, but who knows how far I'll get with it, if I'll get it done. We will see. Anyway, years ago, Jonathan Bingham says, some of my OSR bloggers are doing this collaborative thing called Sea of O's. O's? Oh, Sea of OSR. Everyone was doing a bunch of island maps as a shared world. That's a nifty idea. One of them I did was being published by is being published by Jeffrey Talanian in as an upcoming adventure. Great. Is that going to be using the Swords and Sorcerers Hyperborean system, I assume? Yeah, Jeff is a great guy. Jeff's good people, as Derek White would say, says he, for sure. I just found an older one that I never finished, and I'm working on it now. It's called Blasphemer's Island. Look for that from Jonathan Bingham in an upcoming Quest zine. That'll be a treat. All right, so we're cutting off the rest of this. We're cutting off everything from up here, everything back here. So the bear, whatever this monster is, isn't going back here. Whatever's here can't get out because of the bear. Maybe it's something that doesn't care. Maybe there's just a big ooze that has moved in here, and it's just laying in wait for spiders to come along and suck them in. 10 over here. Something interesting. This could be an area where there's actually some mining was being done here. And a new vein of silver has been exposed. All right. Now there's a good reason for everyone to be there. 12 dwarves. Let's say 9 miners and 3 guards. Hiding out here, awaiting rescue. Hey. Oh. Maybe an ooze. Maybe just, or shriekers. Piercers. Yep, something like that. That'd work. So all of that would explain why these guys have never gotten further along. But it also puts us in a position where we've got to creatively decide that whatever is beyond those 2 points now cannot be something that needs to get out or wants to get out or any number of other things like that. Then we're going to put this up here, bring it down to there. I'm going to clear it off. Oops. Need my text tool. So that was 10 up there, and it's going to be 11. And we don't know how many numbers we need yet, so let's do that. Put the other one here. Alright, there we go. Now we can go up to the map. Well, let's go steal a number from up here, huh? This over. As good a place as any. Let's call that number 11, right? All right. Yep, AS and SH adventure, tentatively called. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say the name yet then. I don't want to confuse people in case you change it. But it's going to have something to do with an island. That's a neat name, though. Oh, it was going to be play tested here, huh? But no Gary Con, no play testing. That sucks. Sorry, buddy. It is bad news. Put that in there. Did they not want to do it virtually for whatever reasons? Wanting to, it's got to be tough to virtually play test something. I mean, you can, but there is something to being face to face when you get the feedback. There are certain cues you can pick up on that you probably really can't glean if you're doing a virtual playtest, an online playtest. So I can imagine maybe that's a good reason not to do it that way, or not to do it here. Oops, where'd we go? There we are. Alright, so we've gone down this side. Now we got to get back up here. Did we put anything here? I think we can. Actually, yep, with that there. We've got the collapsed in there. I think that's its own thing there. I think we go down to there next. And then we've got to get one in there. One in there. Get one in there. One in there. And one down in there. All right. So it did get play tested at TotalCon, huh? How was the feedback? Were they looking at changing a whole lot of stuff, or were they just was it mostly fine tuning sort of stuff that would be needed to get done? And we went down to this one next. 19, 20 there. We'll call this 21, 22, 23. Okay. 11. Where are we at? Well, we're almost at midnight. I tell you what, I'm thinking about winding this down. The longer the video, the tougher it is for people to watch it. So we're at about an hour 20 now. So I'm going to make the call. Say you got good feedback, mostly saying that creatures had them questioning your sanity. That's good feedback for sure. Because that system definitely likes that pulpy horror sort of sword and sorcery stuff. You know, if Conan runs into something, it's got to be horrific. It can't just be a, well, you know, he has his share of fights with other people, but sorcery, magic is definitely bizarre in pulp fiction, and the creatures are as well. All right, buddy. Well, listen, I'm going to say goodnight then. Thank you very much for popping in and sticking around. Thank you, Jared, too, for gifting the chat room folks from Myth Horde. And thank you for putting the password for the crates, for the mystery crates, into the chat. I'll share them again tomorrow during any streams I do, just for the people in the chats. And we'll see if we can send a few more out. And Jonathan Bingham, Heath, thank you so much. Jen from earlier, I appreciate it. And of course, Lala Twiddle. I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure. Let me scroll back up and get it right. Lala Twiddle. I said it correctly. Thank you for stopping in earlier. I appreciate that too. hopefully we'll see some more people tomorrow. I'm definitely going to do a morning thing, and then I'm probably going to do another wind down, working on a map or something like this one. You have a good night. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.